And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, January 23rd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, as always, just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off by talking about some coaching change updates across the league. We have some new head coaching positions that have now been filled, so we'll talk about that. Also, some coordinators being shuffled around and parting ways, so we'll get into that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about, so it's really just going to be kind of like the post-mortem for the teams that lost in the divisional round. So we'll talk about the Texans and the Packers and the bright futures that they have. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about the Buccaneers and what their future is like, and also the controversy around Todd Bowles and him not using the final timeout at the end of the game on Sunday. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about what's next for the Buffalo Bills, because obviously that was a huge loss for them, and again, suffering another playoff loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll get into that in the final part of the show. But also, I just wanted to mention, if you may have noticed, there has been more content that has been produced on both channels. We have more shows. We got the basketball show. We have the sports show, the Tate Cast. We're really starting. We're going to have an MMA show as well. So we have a lot of things coming up. Here on the GSMC Sports Network. So I'm really excited about it. Because for a while it's kind of just been me. So you're not. So now you don't have to just deal with me. You got other perspectives on certain things as well. So it's a good time. It's an exciting time now, and that's going to continue. So make sure to tune into all those. Those will be posted. All those shows are posted throughout the day as well. So I just wanted to touch upon that. But yeah, so let's get right into the first topic of the show now, which is talking about some coaching changes here. So two head coaching positions that I want to talk about. So first, the Tennessee Titans, they hired offensive coordinator Brian Callahan to become their next head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for the Bengals for the last 5 seasons. He's also the son of current Browns assistant Bill Callahan. He's a guy that's worked with quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford. He's actually, who else has he worked? He's worked with, he's worked with Stafford, because I was doing some research on him. So yeah, he served as the quarterbacks coach for the Raiders, and the Lions. And he also was a coaching assistant with the Denver Broncos. So he's worked with Peyton Manning, he's worked with Stafford, he's worked with Derek Carr, and of course Joe Burrow as well, being with the Bengals. And he was the offensive assistant in Denver when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50. So he got to work with Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler as well. And you would think like, oh yeah, he worked with Peyton Manning. Well, he worked with Peyton Manning when that was probably Peyton Manning's worst season as a starting quarterback. 9 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. Now again, you're working with Peyton Manning, so that's not something to diminish, but still, that was the season where he just did not play. I mean, the Broncos won the Super Bowl, but it was that season. He also worked with Brock Osweiler, who also played some games as well late in the season when Peyton Manning got hurt. So yeah, that's a little bit on him. And yeah, I mean, they're bringing him in because, again, offensive coach, and that's something that I've said, although the next head coach that I want to talk about is not an offensive guy. But that's kind of where the league is going, is you got to have an offensive coach. And the Titans are hoping that he could develop Will Levis, because the Titans, the last 3 years, they were 17th in total yards in 2021, 30th in total yards in 2022, and then 28th this past season. They averaged 17.9 points per game, which, the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers only averaged fewer. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. what this hire leads to. I mean, the Titans, they got some question marks. Will Levis, he had a great debut, but kind of slowed down after that. Derrick Henry's a free agent. We'll see if DeAndre Hopkins sticks around. So Titans are kind of in rebuild mode. So we'll see what this leads to for them. And then also the other hire was the Raiders made Antonio Pierce their full-time head coach, which it seemed like that was kind of trending that way, And I think it was the right move. The Raiders did play better when he took over. I know some people are kind of, I know somebody that is a Raiders fan, and he was saying that there's still some issues that Antonio Pierce has to work out. I think like clock management, things like that. But, the defense, that was something that's been a problem for the Raiders for years, and they seemed to play better when Antonio Pierce took over. I mean, listen, they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, which, doesn't happen very often. You could tell that and that's kind of been the weakness of the Raiders team for a lot of years now. But now it's kind of, the offense that now looks like to be the issue. Because, listen, Aiden O'Connell I don't think is the long-term answer at quarterback. So they're going to have to address that. And you also have Josh Jacobs, who's a free agent as well. Are they going to bring him back? Because Zamir White, who's the backup for the Raiders, he actually did pretty good when Jacobs was out, when Jacobs missed some games. So we'll see. But I'm happy for him. He also being a Giant fan too, and my mom said the same thing. It's like, oh, well, the Giants don't have a defensive coordinator. Maybe we should get Antonio Pierce. My mom's like, she wanted to see him get the job with the Raiders, and that's exactly what happened. So the Raiders also brought in Marvin Lewis to kind of help out. Well, Antonio Pierce wanted his help because Antonio Pierce has worked with Marvin Lewis before, and Marvin Lewis obviously was a longtime head coach with the Bengals, and I know people will talk about the playoff losses with the Bengals because they had a lot of those, and how they couldn't get over the hump with Marvin Lewis as the head coach. But I think having him there to help out Antonio Pierce and the experience that he's had as a head coach, you can have that. And also you have Tom Coughlin as well, reached out to Antonio Pierce and said, if he needs help, he's there for him to lean on. So, and I think that's big. That you have former head coaches that are willing to help you out because, you're just kind of learning on the fly. So I like the hire because with the Raiders, they're trying to make in the past, they make these splash hires. Like you bring in John Gruden and that really didn't work out. And obviously we know what happened there. And then of course, you had Rick Bisaccia that took over and the Raiders ended up making the playoffs with all the drama that surrounded them in 2021. And then they elected to hire Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels just was not a Derek Carr fan. They got Derek Carr out of there. You bring in Garoppolo, and that just failed. And now, of course, they benched him. Aiden O'Connell stepped in as the starter. So, I think that was I think the Raiders did the right thing. And also you have, the star players, Max Crosby, Devontae Adams coming out and saying and advocating for him to be the guy. And Max Crosby even saying that he would request a trade if they don't bring him back. So I think the Raiders did the right thing. But we'll see what happens now with him being the full-time head coach. And they got some work to do there. But I'm happy about that for him. So the other thing, too, is the Eagles ended up letting go of both of their coordinators just today. They let go of Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator. They also let go of Sean Desai, the defensive coordinator, which was, the right moves. Nick Sirianni, looks like his job is safe. And yeah, I mean, you go back to last year. I mean, Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, both sides of the ball were great for the Eagles, and that's why they got to the Super Bowl. I mean, on the defensive side, you had multiple guys with double-digit sacks. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, the Eagles were one of the best offenses in the league. And they kind of were that to start off the year, but still, there was something off. They weren't running the football as well. Again, Jalen Hurts turning the ball over. Something was off. And and obviously A.J. Brown, with you go back to the regular season game against the Bucs, him and Hurts, having a conversation on the sidelines. It just seemed like they couldn't get consistency on that side of the ball. But again, they were 10-1, so it really didn't matter. But then the wheels just fell off, and then you had Sean Desai taking a step back, and they made Matt Patricia the defensive coordinator, and that didn't pan out. And the Eagles tried to fix the secondary. They traded for Kevin Byard from the Titans. It just really didn't pan out for them. So yeah, I think now we just got to see what they end up doing there, because if it goes bad next year, Nick Sirianni might be the guy that's on his way out. So also the Bears, they hired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. He was the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, and did really well with getting Geno Smith's career back on track. Although yeah, they took a step back this year, but still, the Bears, and we'll see. What are they going to do? Is Caleb Williams going to be the guy because they have the number 1 overall pick, or are they going to keep Justin Fields? So that remains to be seen. But that's just another coaching change there. Obviously, they're keeping Eberflus. So, yeah. And then actually, a quick college thing. So Bill O'Brien, who the Patriots brought back to be their OC, he's now going to be the offensive coordinator next year for Ohio State. So he goes back to college after 1 year, returning to the NFL. So that was kind of brief. And then also, actually, the Saints, they fired their offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael. He was there for years, 18 seasons, which I did not realize. Well, he served as the offensive coordinator for 15 of them. So he was with the Saints for 18 seasons. But yeah, he was successful with Drew Brees, with Sean Payton, but things just, again, it might be time for a change, and that's exactly what the Saints are doing. And the Saints, the last couple of games of the season, they looked really good offensively. It was like, where was that all year? So, again, I'm not really a fan of them keeping Dennis Allen, but, that's what they're going to do. But, yeah, Carmichael's out as the OC for the Saints. I don't think they made any moves there. I don't think they hired anybody as the OC. I can check really quick here. But yeah, that's pretty much all the coaching changes I wanted to talk about. Let me know what you guys think about them. But yeah, I don't think. So I see the Saints request interview with Jared Johnson for offensive coordinator. Zach Robinson had an offensive coordinator associated with the Rams. Texans. Jared Johnson's with the Texans. Yeah, Robinson's with the Rams. So yeah, the position hasn't been filled yet. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. But I think that's pretty much all the coaching changes that I wanted to get into. And obviously, Bill Belichick, he had a couple of interviews with the Falcons. Harbaugh met with the Falcons as well. We're still waiting on Vrabel and where he could potentially go. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I know at least for the NFC East, it's going to be the same next year. You're going to have Sirianni and you're going to have Mike McCarthy. So that makes me feel good because I don't want to see Harbaugh or Belichick come to the NFC East unless they're coming to the Giants. But then the Giants would have to let go of Dable. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all the coaching changes. No updates really on the big names. Of course, they're just interviewing. I feel like one of those big names is going to end up on the Chargers. So we'll see. But we're going to take our first break now, and then when we come back, we're then going to talk about the Texans and the Packers. We're going to talk about their bright futures because, listen, they lost some tough playoff games over the weekend. More so the Packers. The Texans kind of just got blown out by the Ravens, unfortunately for them. But we're going to talk about why the future is bright for both of those teams when we come back from our first break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.